Hafler by Rockford Corporation, Transana P1000, 110 watts of professional power amplifier. Separate gain settings, headphone output, signal indicators for clipping thermal on both channels, a bridged switch, normal or bridged? Bridged mono. Very thin. If you look how thin that is with the rack mount, I think. No, some of the other equipment, so what happened was in the late '80s. I don't know how the deal happened, but basically there was a guy named Hafler that built some really nice amplifiers for home theater and for recording studios. This is all hearsay. Rockford Corporation stepped in and bought them and decided to throw their hat in the ring for home theater and hi-fi, which I really thought they could have done a great job with, but I think there was a lot of issues with shipping, and it's like, how powerful can you be in a market like, for local markets in Arizona, especially in the 90s. Things were good, but they weren't that good, and I think that's one of the reasons why the brand ended up folding. One of the things that you can look for is the old RF 2000, and I think they probably made a Hafler version, so it'd be the JF 2000. So the RF was the Rockford Fosgate brand, and then the JF was the Hafler brand, with John France being the signature engineer on the project. So if you don't know about John France, there's a little bit of him on some of the older Rockford Fosgate websites. He was an engineer that basically found a great application for the Punch EQ. That's probably what he's most famous for, which was a boost at like 40 hertz and then a boost at like 10K. And he integrated that into some of the Punch amplifiers, which was the Punch EQ. At first it was a single knob that boosted both, and then depending on what crossover you used would filter out the other one. I think Bernie Boland, who at the time worked for Rockford, ended up starting Orion and then put the same circuit on some of the old Orion amps as well. So anyways, Hafler seemed to be marketed towards like a more refined version of audio, even though it's pretty good stuff. It's pretty basic, but I don't know, at the time it just seemed really solid gear to have that was maybe more affordable than something else that was out there. And this was, I think, was one of their smallest amplifiers. You can probably look. I'll put links in the description for some of the Hafler stuff. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and send a request to. There's an audio guy that I like on YouTube, and send him a request to do a video on Hafler, because he does like audio history on brands. And I just watched the one on it was on Kenwood, Iowa, and Onkyo, which I really liked Onkyo. A lot of it had to do with the time in my life. I was a young teen, and the smell of it going into Circuit City, the smell of the circuit boards. Oh, I loved it. It was awesome, and it was something that I actually could afford. But again, it was one of those things that has to do with the time, and that's what really this amplifier is about. So let's go over some of the features. As you can see, this is the rack mount version. I think they made some tabletop version stuff, and we'll get into some of the top of the line one was the RF 2000, and then the preamp had more Rockford Fosgate Punch car audio features in it, which made it really a fun brand that just really never took off. So let me turn this around. Oh, by the way, I love these switches. And then there was a clearance, this was a while ago now, of just this switch. I think this switch is like a 15 amp switch with a little green indicator. And there was a bunch of Hafler and Rockford Fosgate stuff when they cleaned out the warehouse a couple years back on eBay. So this is one of the first pieces of equipment I remember using the computer plug standard. So, which again, these are, you can get them anywhere. It has the switch for 230 volt if you want to use it over in Europe. and built-in fuse, and then it has an optional balanced or unbalanced. Now, just a little nod to those that think that balanced is better. You only really need balanced if you're going to go about, I would say, 100 yards or 100 meters or more on signal, and typically that's not the case for an audio setup. Also, what you may or may not know is that a lot of times the amplifier, when it receives the signal, will often not fully use the inherent advantages of balanced. So what it'll do is inside it'll just have one leg hooked up and the ground, so it's the same signal quality level as balanced as it is unbalanced. So it's a lie, it's a fib. So but these, I really like these connectors because they do the this is the XLR, or you can do, I think, are these the triple ones? I think so, where you can do the triple XLR or the 1/4 inch, which was always a nice thing. Float ground or chassis, I still don't know what that is, and I would just flip it back and forth. Kind of a cheap terminal. I'm not really a fan of this, but again, in these sort of situations, this is an industrial quality, industrial level terminal, and that was appropriate if you're going to put this in like a studio for monitoring. The switch also allows you to switch to balanced or unbalanced. I just tested this thing, it works great. I'm actually going to keep it because the resale value on it is very, very low. Typically these things go for about 60-70 bucks, and to me the sentimental value is worth more than selling it. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it. But as you can see here, always using the Rockford Corporation brand power to help sell the brand. In some of the car audio, they would actually just do a white Diamond R logo on some of the Hafler stuff. I remember there's this place out of New York that had tons and tons of these MSE 88TN, which is Transnova, which is what you see on here, which I think is just or there's Transana and Transnova. These are just trademark things of audio features that most audio companies use anyway to keep noise down, or to whatever it is, whatever the feature is. I'll let you look it up. So you can see, oh, it's just marketing. Yeah, it's just marketing. So let's go ahead and open this up and see what she's got. All right. So this one uses a dual tap transformers. Technically, these are two transformers, two separate ones. They just use a common steel laminate core, and then you have both of the output boards here and here. This one is inverse. This mounting system is just like on the car audio amps. In fact, this particular system I saw later on in hot setup, where the bolts are on the outside. I don't know if you can see in between the fins. So, and then it looks like they just used some of that. It's not Kapton tape. It's a different type of heatsink tape that's a little squishier. It's kind of a cloth, a soft cloth. It looks like it has some basic bias setting pots. There is your rectifier. There's your rail caps, and then the rail voltage to them. So, and then well, no, I'm sorry. This is the speaker output. Yeah, and then this goes over to here. So pretty basic layout. Basically turning optional, 220 or 110 volts, probably down to about 35 volts. You can usually tell on the caps, on what caps they use, but you can use higher voltage caps and it doesn't affect anything. 50 volt caps, yeah, so that's plenty. So probably the rails probably run right around 35, 36 volts, which is plenty to achieve the wattage that these are rated for. And then these were also 4 ohm per channel stable, and so you could bridge them at 8 ohm. Sometimes they put it on there, yeah. So there it is. 8 ohm mono, which is plenty for home audio. If you wanted to do 2 ohm, or actually 4 ohm mono, which would be 2 ohm per side, you would just use a smaller transformer that's that's like beefier, bigger windings, but like lower rail voltage. That's another way to get the same amount of energy out of the amplifier, which is what Bernie Bolin did on the HCCA. And the only reason why the HCCA is built the way it is because of the rules for SPL at the time, which was that the amplifier had to be rated at a certain wattage for 4 ohm to try to make it fair across the board. But obviously the hack was to go down to, you know, fractions of an ohm in order to get the power out of the amplifier, which increases distortion. You lose damping factor, but the amplifier, as far as heat goes, there's no difference in the heat. There might be a little bit warmer for lower impedances. You'll have to ask a real engineer about that, but I don't see there would be any difference because the throughput is the same. Like on the Orion 225, that's it's a 400 watt amplifier, and then the heatsink is slightly oversized to kind of facilitate that. And you got to remember, a lot of these were designed in Arizona, so sometimes there's compensations for hot vehicles. The ambient temperature inside of a Arizona vehicle is about 140 degrees already, and then typically thermal is about 180, 185, which is sometimes you can see the there it is, the thermal coupler. It's just a little capacitor, and then when it gets hot, it pops open, and that's when you can see the thermal. So these heat sinks are actually quite small. This is probably maybe 100, 120 watt heat sink, but also typically these are going to run in an air-conditioned space, and then they get especially efficient if you just cock them up a little bit so that the air can get underneath the fins, and then again what happens is this gets hot, the hot air rises, and then it pulls in cool air underneath. That's called convection. So, but that's my review on this little bad boy. I picked it up for I think $25, which I thought was a killer deal. And then when I am ready to sell it, I can sell it at a profit and buy some pornography. So, thanks for watching, guys. I love you. Talk to you later.